The thread of this story begins on a chilling note, drawing back the veil on a crime that shook the heart of West Memphis. The West Memphis Three, as they were later known, became synonymous with one of the most contentious and highly publicized court cases in recent American history. Initially perceived as clear-cut, the case against these teenagers would unravel over the years, exposing a tangled web of questionable police practices, coerced confessions, and legal inconsistencies. As the sun broke over the crime scene, the small community of West Memphis was thrust into the spotlight, grappling with the horror and brutality of the crime. But as details emerged, so too did doubts about the guilt of the three young men at the center of this storm. On May 5, 1993, West Memphis was pierced by the heart-wrenching discovery of three 8-year-old boys, Steve Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore, whose lifeless bodies were found in a shallow creek in the Robin Hood Hills. The crime scene was chaotic, marked by its gruesome nature and the mysterious circumstances surrounding their deaths. This macabre discovery not only prompted an immediate investigation, but also fueled a growing hysteria in a community gripped by fear. Detailing the initial impact, local law enforcement scrambled to piece together the events leading to the tragic deaths, amid rising pressure to find the perpetrators quickly. The bodies, bound with their own shoelaces, suggested a ritualistic element to the killings, a detail that would later ignite much of the sensationalist theories that permeated the case. The brutal murder of three children incited a whirlwind of media coverage. Journalists descended upon West Memphis, each eager to cover the sensational details of the crime. Newspapers, television channels, and later online forums speculated wildly about the involvement of satanic cults, reflecting the era's pervasive fear of such underground activities. This media storm played a substantial role in shaping public perception, casting a dark shadow over the proceedings and influencing potential jurors. The subsequent public outcry demanded swift justice, which some argue may have compromised the quality of the investigation, paving the way for haste and oversight instead of thorough, methodical inquiry. Within a month of the discovery, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miscarriage Jr. were arrested, primarily based on Miscarriage's controversial confession, later retracted, which suggested a link to satanic rituals. These teenagers, already marginalized by their community for their nonconformist appearance and interest in alternative subcultures, became easy targets for the collective anxieties of the town. Exploring their backgrounds, the essay delves into how societal biases against their perceived Gothic lifestyles contributed to their quick demonization. In an atmosphere where appearance significantly influenced perception, the case against them was as much cultural as it was criminal. Central to the case was the evidence presented during the trials. Significant among these were the forensic findings, or the lack thereof. Initially, the prosecution claimed that the knife marks on the victims tied back to a knife owned by Damian Eccles. However, later forensic analysis called these conclusions into question. Over the years, advancements in forensic technology have shed new light on these findings, with DNA evidence not matching any of the accused. This segment considers the pivotal role of forensic science in the case, questioning whether justice can ever truly rely on an evolving scientific field, particularly when lives hang in the balance. As the trials progressed, the defense teams faced an uphill battle, not just against a wave of public sentiment, but also against a prosecution bolstered by what many saw as shaky evidence. The defense pointed out numerous inconsistencies and procedural errors, including the mishandling of evidence and the controversial use of Jesse Miscarriage Jr.'s confession, which was obtained after an intense and arguably manipulative interrogation process. This part of the essay delves into the strategic maneuvers by the defense teams, highlighting how they challenged the prosecution's narrative and exposed the frailties in their argument. Moreover, it scrutinizes the broader implications of a defense strategy that must counter not only the evidence presented but also the overwhelming public and media bias. Expert testimonies played a critical role in the West Memphis Three case, influencing both the jury's perception and the ultimate verdict. The prosecution's experts asserted connections between the crime scene and alleged satanic rituals, a theory that resonated with the jury's fears but was later criticized for its lack of scientific basis. This section evaluates the impact of such testimonies, discussing how expert opinions can sway legal outcomes significantly. It questions the qualifications and motives of those experts, shedding light on the potential misuse of expert testimony in courtrooms. The West Memphis 3 case was as much a trial of 3 individuals as it was a litmus test for the community's, and by extension, society's capacity for tolerance and understanding. This part explores the psychological dynamics at play, including the impact of moral panic on justice and how the fear of the other can lead to devastating consequences. Here we dissect the societal undercurrents that influenced the case, from the satanic panic of the 1980s and 1990s to the broader themes of fear, otherness, and the need for a scapegoat in times of community stress. The trials of Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly were marred by what many observers saw as significant legal failings. Eccles was sentenced to death, Baldwin received life imprisonment, and Miskelly was sentenced to life plus 40 years. This section narrates the courtroom drama, the emotional testimonies, and the controversial decisions that led to their convictions. It scrutinizes the legal proceedings through the lens of judicial fairness and the right to a fair trial, questioning whether justice was truly served or if the verdict was a result of emotional and societal pressures. Following their convictions, the West Memphis 3 did not fade from the public or legal spotlight. Instead, their case became a cause célèbre, attracting support from celebrities, legal experts, and a vocal public advocating for their release. This part covers the years of legal wrangling that followed, including multiple appeals, public campaigns, and the eventual emergence of new evidence. This narrative thread examines the role of public advocacy in justice, highlighting how external pressures can both hinder and help the pursuit of truth and fairness in the legal system. In 2011, after 18 years of imprisonment, the West Memphis 3 were released following an Alford plea, a legal maneuver that allowed them to assert their innocence while acknowledging that the prosecution had enough evidence to convict them. This section details the circumstances around their release, the reactions from various stakeholders, and the implications of such a plea for their claims of innocence. This part raises important questions about the nature of justice and the mechanisms of the legal system, pondering the moral and ethical dimensions of their release. The West Memphis 3 case leaves a lasting legacy on the American legal landscape, prompting debates about justice, fairness, and the influence of societal biases on legal outcomes. This concluding part reflects on the broader implications of the case for the criminal justice system and the lessons it imparts about the intersection of law, media, and public opinion. Here, we contemplate the changes needed to prevent such miscarriages of justice in the future, considering reforms in legal procedures, forensic methodologies, and the handling of media during high-profile cases.